Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special immigration show brought to you by Sakshi TV. My name is Ranjit. We are here today with the prominent attorney, Ms. Murthy, to discuss the adjustment of status concerns and the USCIS delays. You can call the numbers displayed on the screen and ask any question related to immigration, and our attorney will be glad to answer. We'll start taking calls in a few minutes. Before starting the show, I would like to repeat the disclaimer. Please note this show does not provide any legal advice and it is general in nature. It is only for informational purposes. Sakshi TV news and agents are not responsible in any way for your actions. Please use the information at your own risk. You all know very well Ms. Murthy is the founder and president of the Murthy Law Firm and Harvard Law School graduate. Also, she's the one behind Murthy.com, the famous website. Before getting into the session, hi Ms. Murthy, could you please just give a brief introduction and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ranjit, and thank you and welcome to all our wonderful new subscribers and people who have signed up today. We are delighted and honored to continue to help you, to guide you, to mentor you, to provide you some guidance on U.S. immigration law and the latest changes happening in immigration law. Murthy Law Firm, as you know, was started over 26 years ago with the world famous website, the world's most popular legal website, www.murthy.com. And our goal is to educate, inspire, and provide guidance so that people don't feel sad, alone, and forgotten in the very complex and continuously changing arena of U.S. immigration law. So I understand from Ranjit that there are lots of very, very good questions on the 485 process. So I am open and ready to start taking your questions and continuing to guide you. Again, for those, I know that they also asked me to say that for those of you who want advice, specific advice, you obviously would need to consult with an attorney for your own protection. And if you do not have an attorney, you're welcome to contact us at law@murthy.com. Go to murthy.com or call the phone number on the website, 410-356-5440. As I said, our goal is to continue to enrich and empower and enlighten all of you on the complex immigration law changes. And Ranjit won't tell you this, but he's also extremely knowledgeable about immigration issues to ask all these great questions. So thank you, Ranjit, and thank you to each of you.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Murthy. Before starting the show, we already have a caller. Let's take the caller from Texas. Hi, Zoeb. Welcome to the show. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello,
Okay,
hello, ma'am. Thanks for holding this call. My question is,
could you please mute your TV or whatever? We are having an echo
here. My firm
here.
was applied in July 2019, which eventually went to audit, and then it went to supervised recruitment. And last week, I got a reply that it is denied because the phone call logs from my company were not provided. So when this went into audit, I was a little worried that whether it will go for an approval or not. So I applied one more firm from an outside company, Company B. So that Company B firm got approved and I-140 got approved. But I have the current Company A has a better opportunity compared to Company B. So can I use that I-140 to extend my H-1B visa from Company A, because my Company A H-1B visa is getting, it is till June 2021. So can I just use that I-140 in my Company A and get an H-1B extension?
I have great news for you. Absolutely. You are absolutely allowed to use the I-140 petition with Company B to extend the H-1B in 3-year increments with Company A completely different employer, because keep in mind, the I-140, the perm and I-140 are based on the concept of a future job offer. And hence, you don't need to be working with that company today to file and get an H-1B extension of 3 years with Company A. Now, obviously, since you said that you prefer Company A to work with on a long-term basis, you would be better off ultimately getting a perm and I-140 approval with Company A, especially because at some point Company B may decide to revoke the I-140 petition if they think that you will never join them or have no plans or intentions of joining them. But for now, absolutely, go ahead and use that I-140 petition approval and get your 3-year, file for your 3-year extension of status on your H-1B as allowed under the law, because if the priority dates are not current, you are eligible for the 3-year H-1B extension of status. Obviously, if the priority dates are current, then you will only get a 1-year H-1B extension of status based on the perm having been filed over 365 days earlier. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.
So the adjustment of status, now this has become a hot topic and a lot of people have applied. Now a lot of people have a lot of questions, especially if someone wants to leave US when adjustment of status is pending. What's going to happen? Is there any threat to the adjustment of status or advance parole or EAD, or nothing is affected? Could you please just give a brief explanation?
Sure. So under the doctrine of dual intent, a person can have both an H-1B or an L-1 status, or H-4 or L-2 status as dependents, and the 485 adjustment of status can continue. If the person is forced or required to travel outside for family or work-related emergency, there is a slight potential risk, and the slight risk is that the USCIS could consider that the 485 is deemed abandoned if the person did not apply for and obtain the advance parole. The exception is for H and L visa holders or status holders, because those are considered dual intent status as allowed under the Immigration Act of 1990 or IMACT 90. And so under IMACT, if the person has an H-1B visa stamp in the passport, plans to use that H-1 visa stamp to travel abroad and re-enter, because the person also has backup H-1B or L-1 status or H-4 or L-2 status, then traveling abroad and re-entering on H or L status should not result in the USCIS considering that the 485 is deemed abandoned by law. However, if the person is unable to obtain the H-1B, H-4, L-1, or L-2 visa stamp because of the closure of the consulates or not falling within the presidential proclamation exemptions or exceptions, then the USCIS could very well deem that the person has abandoned the 485, because the safest way to travel is, of course, besides the H or L as the backup, is also having the advance parole in your hand before you travel abroad. Because if you don't get the visa, then you have no way to come back and your 485 could be deemed as abandoned.
Got it, Ms. Murthy. One question just to add. There are a lot of news saying that when advance parole is pending and you travel out, advance parole is abandoned and you have to reapply. Is that true? Just advance parole.
So it should, again, if you're coming back on the H-1B, H-4, or L1, AL1B or L2, then you are not required to have to refile the same advance parole. It should not be deemed abandoned if you are returning back on the valid dual intent status under the memos that was passed over 20 years ago when the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act was passed. They'll absolutely recognize the dual intent status of H and L visa holders based on the 1990 Act, which recognized dual intent. So generally, it is not required to refile the advance parole. We had heard of a couple of cases several years ago, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago, of a couple of denials. But in some of those cases, we actually went back to senior officials with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, with USCIS, contacted senior officials, and we were able to explain that the denials were in error and the candidate is not required to file a fresh advance parole, and the USCIS agreed. So while we had seen some problems a couple of years ago, I think those problems should no longer be existing.
Got it. We have the caller back online. Raj, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Attorney Garu. My question is, I'm Raj from New Jersey. My question is related to the recent AOS. So I have applied for 765. I got my EAD plus advance payroll combo card last week. My question is related to the job change. I heard we cannot change the job for the 6 months once after we get the EAD plus advance payroll. So is that true? If it is true, from which date it is applicable? Is it applicable from the receipt notice or is it applicable from the approval notice? Can you please answer to this question? Thank you.
Sure. So the AC 21 law, also called the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act, which was passed way back in October of 2000, actually, when President Bill Clinton was the president of the United States, that law allows for changes of employer after the perm and I-140. The I-140 is approved, and as long as the I-485 adjustment of status was filed minimum 180 days earlier, approximately 6 months, but you have to count the 180 days, and it has to be pending from that date. So it is from the receipt notice date. So in your case, Raj, if your I-485, for example, was filed in October, you would wait 6 months until April of 2021 to ensure that you are able to change jobs or employers. But remember, the most important thing is not just changing to any job, because AC-21 law has a very strict requirement that the new job with the new employer must be in the same or similar job occupational classification as required under the AC-21 portability provisions. So if the new job is slightly different in job description or duties, if it is completely different, then you might have a problem, because the new employer also has to sign what's called the Supplement J and provide that to the USCIS. And once that is approved, then there's a good chance your 485 could get approved. Otherwise, there's a risk that if the job is not considered the same or similar job occupational classification, same or similar duties, then the entire 485 could get denied. So you need to be very careful, examine it, discuss it with your lawyer. If you can't discuss with your company lawyer, contact us or some other lawyer whom you're comfortable with, who can explain the process to you, Raj. Thank you.
I think that answered the question. We have another caller from Atlanta. Hi, welcome to the show. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Pragnesh, and I'm actually from Atlanta. And I have a quite complicated case. In September, I had my H-1B denied. That was my extension. And I was actually completing my 6th year on January 23rd of this year. So basically, before I complete my 6th year, the last H-1B extension got denied due to the specialty occupation. We provided all the information in RFE, but later on, USCIS mentioned that it is still not enough for them. So we filed a motion to reopen since I got we have a newborn baby, so we cannot travel during the COVID situation. So my lawyer suggested to file for a motion to reopen, and meanwhile we can file for another petition. My employer promoted me, and they filed another new H-1B petition. Meanwhile my 140 got approved in December. So right now, for the second petition that my employer filed, USCIS has given us RFIE, that is like request for initial evidence. We responded back, and just 2 days back, we again got RFE from USCIS, and we are not sure what's going to happen. And my lawyer is mentioning that this might be again ending up in denial. So I wanted to see I wanted to check from your experience and from your perspective, what do you think this can again enter in denial? Then I have to leave the country before March. So, it's kind of like a very, very tricky situation. And second thing I want to ask is, that was my first question. Second question is, my wife is actually born from Middle East. She has an Indian citizenship, but she was born in Middle East. So I heard about there is something called cross-chargeability. Can you be able to let us know what does that mean? And for that, does my wife also have to have 140 approved, or I can just still utilize her country of birth?
Okay, Pragnesh, so let me try to, the part that is extremely complex, and when you say, will the second case also get denied? It's like going to a doctor and saying, do I have cancer? If I don't look at the underlying why you got the RFE, what the problem is, what are the specific issues or concerns, why the first case got denied, it's like what Ranjit said at the very beginning. It is almost impossible to say, did the lawyer make a mistake? Was there an error in filing? Can we win this case easily? Or is this truly a problem with your background and situation where specialty occupation could result in another denial? So I would recommend you schedule a specific consultation with our firm or anybody else that you're comfortable with, Pragnesh, just to be sure and safe. But if it's the same issues And if there wasn't an error the first time around, I tell people just the law of logistics, and most of you are engineers, so logic is, and logical analysis is clearly part of your repertoire, that clearly there's a good chance it could get denied again if the same problem is continuing with the case. Regarding the second question about cross-chargeability, because your wife was born in a country other than India, like some country in the Middle East, which does not have the same backlog problems. So for that, I have great news for you. And the good news is that the law does allow cross-chargeability. I think we have written some articles about this also on Murthy.com about cross-chargeability. There also may be questions on the Murthy forum, because we literally, lawyers are answering questions all day long on the Murthy forum, the chat, the weekly Murthy bulletins that we put out, etc. So take advantage of that. But basically, when you file the I-485, if the priority date for your wife is current, she does not need her own PERM or I-140 approval at all, Pragnesh. She is allowed to use your priority date. We marry that, we merge it. That's where the cross-chargeability comes up with her country of birth, and apply 485 for you both and any other children who are not born in the United States, so that we can file 485 for all of you without waiting for the prior those sort of Indian origin priority dates to become current. So that's the good news. Just make sure that you understand what is going on. By the way, if your total time out of status on H-1B is less than 180 days and your 485 can be filed immediately, you are allowed to stay in the country even if you cannot work legally, because you need either an H-1B or you need the EAD to be approved to keep working legally with your employer. And as we know, the EADs are taking between 6 to 12 months for cases that have been filed since October of 2020 because of the huge backlog with USCIS. But because you have so much good news and so many complexities in your case, Pragnesh, I would suggest that you definitely consult with your lawyer. And if your company lawyer is not able to guide you for some reason because they don't have the knowledge or have not done cross-chargeability before, etc., please feel free to contact us at Murthy.com, and we would be honored to help you and your family. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Murthy. That was a great, topic, interesting question, and you gave a very detailed explanation. Again, everyone, if there is case-specific detail, you have to reach to an attorney, because there are a lot of things involved in RFE and all complications. So please reach out for a case-specific details, Ms. Murthy office or any other office that you're comfortable with. Hi, Ms. Murthy. We have the next question. A lot of news, a lot of blogs have a lot of different answers, and a lot of attorneys say different things. So I just want to clear this up. So what happens, let's say people who file adjustment of status have received their EADs and advance parole, and they travel out of country. They also have an H-1B approval when they were in the country. Now, when they enter the country, if they are entering an advance parole, what will their status be? I mean, if you say, when you come in, you can maintain your H-1B because you have an approved H-1B. But there are, a lot of different answers. So what do you think the status will be? Can they still be maintaining the H-1B that they had earlier, still, if they didn't enter on H-1B though? And what about the dependents? What happens to them? Because they're not entered on H-1B, can they file H-4s, EADs, or can you please explain this situation?
Sure. So there was this discussion actually came up over 20 years ago, soon after the law was passed, because people were very confused. People would travel and come back, and the CBP officers, the Customs and Border Protection at the airports or land ports or seaports, any of the airports usually, would tell people, would put them on advance parole if they showed the advance parole, or put them on H-1B. But it shouldn't matter, because the way the USCIS headquarters SCOPS, Service Center Operations, or SCOPS, SCOPS, then the headquarters clarified to the American Immigration Lawyers Association, again, from many, many years ago, 20 years ago or so, that a person is allowed to re-enter, for example, on the advance parole. But if that person is only working for that same H-1B employer with whom they have the H-1B petition approval, and their dependents are on H-4 status, spouse and one or two of the kids, then they are allowed to file the H-1B extension of status and the H-4 extensions of status all together, concurrently or simultaneously, even if they showed the advanced parole and entered on the advanced parole. In the meanwhile, they can also extend the advanced parole and the EAD card just as a backup extra security in case they lose the H-1B job. So the law has said, as long as you're with that employer, you're using that same H-1B, you're allowed to extend it. I know there's confusion, but there shouldn't be, because the rules are fairly clear about what is and is not allowed in this situation. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was very clear. So just have to make sure that you're with the same employer, otherwise you cannot use both.
Correct. Because if you're changing to a new employer, so even with a new employer, if you change and you have the receipt notice with the new employer, if your visa stamp in your passport on H1 is still valid, obviously you can show the H1 visa stamp, you can show the receipt notice with the new employer, and you can still come in on H1B status, or you can just show your EAD card with the advanced parole, if it's a combo card, as was just explained, and come in with that. You have a lot of choices, but that's where we talk about the case-specific advice, because if it's really your life and death, your livelihood, and you're going to be stuck outside the country for months or years, you don't want to just find out, because everything that Ranjit and I discuss, that we discuss in this situation like this, is based on generic information that we get in 1 or 2 minutes. After that, if I look carefully and I find an exception or an exception to an exception that may make your case different, obviously I don't, the last thing in the world that Sakshi TV, Ranjit, or myself would ever want is messing up, having your life messed up because we tried to take a shortcut and did not properly, in depth, have an attorney really research, examine, and analyze it for you. But in general, the rule is you should not have a problem if you either have the H-1B visa stamp in your passport, come back on that. If you have the advanced parole, come back on that, and you can still file the H-1 extension if you're with the same employer. If it's a brand new employer, once you enter, you should still be able to file your H-1 extension with the new employer, because you're doing a change from employer A, for example, to employer B. We've seen it, we've done it, it shouldn't be an issue, but I'm sure there are always mistakes, and USCIS has lots of officers. There's a lot of turnover. Some of them are not very experienced. They don't have as much gray hair as some of us. So to have seen changes in the rules over the past 35 plus years of doing immigration law.
True. Yeah. Again, don't take shortcuts. If it's really important that you have to come here and settle for a long term, please take an advice. We have another caller from Virginia. Let's take the call. Hi, welcome to the show. Please go ahead and ask your question. Hello.
Hi, I'm Raj from Virginia. I actually recently received my EAD after applying the downgrading from EB2 to EB3. And I have still my I-140 is in pending for the EB3 process. I just want to check, if I have to change the job, so should I need to wait until my I-140 is approved and after that for 6 months, or after, once the receipt date, after the 6 months of the receipt date?
It's a combination. You need both the I-140 approval and you need to have the 485 pending minimum 180 days. So you need both to be present. It's not 180 days after the I-140 approval. It is just I-140 approval and minimum of 180 days after the 485 or adjustment of status has been filed for a person to be able to take advantage of AC-21 portability provisions. Also, you are required, as I had mentioned earlier in the call, that you need to show that the new job duties are in the same or similar job occupational classification. So you have to look at what was written in the PERM, in the I-140 petition, and ensure that we can track it so that it matches up very closely, if not identical, to show that it's same or similar job occupational classification. Hope that was helpful.
I hope. Yep. One question when we're talking about the occupation, You very well know Indians have a lot of wait time, especially. So, people, when they have applied I-140, they might be a junior programmer or a programmer, but by the time they apply the adjustment of status, they could be a manager or, they have like 10, 15 years of experience. So how does it work when they apply adjustment of status? Because when the I-140 applied, their title and duties were something else. Now, probably in the similar occupation, but had completely a different job. So how do you handle this? Do they need an amendment or?
There's no amendment, so they would have to do if it's a completely different job. So if it's a senior, for example, software engineer to senior software engineer, and you're doing more or less the same things but slightly more sophisticated work, it's not a problem. On the other hand, if it's completely different job duties, if you're now only supervising people, then the Department of Labor says, sorry, that's not the same job. This is a completely different job. So they have the right to deny the case and say it's not same or similar job. It is not the same occupation. So we tell people then it's safer to just do, and most employers will do a fresh perm, fresh I-140. Of course, you can port the earlier priority date in such a case. I know we're running short of time, but I almost forgot, Ranjit.
Yeah.
This new book has just been released by HarperCollins called Being Sheila, The Life Journey of an Immigration Lawyer, with stories, examples, cases of our clients. Very, very interesting. It's a bestseller. It's available on murtinayak.org. You can go to murti.com, do Being Sheila, and you'll find it. I just thought it's got lots of stories, client cases. Of course, we have not told the real name of the client, but it was very exciting because I don't think any other immigration lawyer in the world has a book written about their cases and their clients and the work. And it's not a testament to me or my work. It is a testament to our valuable clients and their lives, because they have gone through hell to get their US green card. And I have had the privilege and honor through my Murti law firm legal team to help them along that journey. So it's actually very fun. It's like a storybook. It's like a novel, very exciting, and got very, very good praise and positive reviews. In fact, this Sunday, the Hindu newspaper in India, one of the leading newspapers in India, is going to be reviewing this. There are multiple reviews on American Bazaar online, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So for those who are interested, please feel free to sign up.
Please go to murti.com and get a copy. Yep. Absolutely. Again, we are almost at the end. Thanks for all the calls and watching the show. It was a great session with interesting topics and questions. Please call in every Tuesday, 1 p.m. EST to watch the special immigration show. This is Ranjit signing off. Please go to murti.com and get a copy of the book. Thank you. Bye-bye.